Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site. Bettingangle.us, a free site. It's Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. Now, only in boxing can you have an undisputed cruiserweight champion go up to heavyweight, beat a guy with multiple belts twice, and then have the lineal champion not offer him the fight, but offer the guy he just beat the fight. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Alexander Usyk. Let's talk about Tyson Fury. Let's talk about Anthony Joshua. Understand, these are preliminary comments, right? All of this has just happened. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me just say, if I knocked on your door and I said, hey, I will give you $40 million to fight me, and let's say I'm the heavyweight champion, in my opinion, especially if you're coming off a second loss in a row, your answer should be, great, I accept. Now give me the details. Right? Take the deal. Apparently that's what Anthony Joshua just did. Tyson Fury, who, as I said in an earlier video, in my opinion, could not beat Alexander Usyk on his back foot. He would have to make size an issue. Apparently has decided to negotiate with Anthony Joshua, not Alexander Usyk. Let's call it what it is. Folks, this is a dodge. Can we be clear on that? Usyk's in his mid-30s. Usyk has publicly said he wants to fight Tyson Fury. Right? Usyk has already traveled to the UK to fight Anthony Joshua, the first fight. Right? So Usyk is a guy who you can reason with. And of course, Tyson Fury, who was talking about retirement, then of course, who said he'd fight Usyk, called Usyk a middleweight, is now offering someone other than Usyk a shot at his title. Right, folks? This is ridiculous. Right? This would be like a Super Bowl where the NFC champion said, no, we don't want to face the AFC champion. We want to face the AFC's runner-up. Right? That, let's just call this a dodge. Let's also call it a great situation for Anthony Joshua. Right? This is a chance at redemption. This is a chance at showing the public that you're still relevant. Right? Understand the position Joshua is in. Before losing to Usyk, he, of course, lost to Andy Ruiz. Right? He wins the rematch, but let's just say the image has taken a beating. Before we thought, okay, he's the future. Then we started thinking, you know what? He's the future, but the future can have bad days. Then we get to the Usyk fights and we start to say, well, he's the future, but maybe he doesn't have the right people around him. Now, of course, he's changed trainers, and now we're saying, well, maybe he hasn't had the right people around him long enough for them to make a difference. Right? Folks, sports is a brutal business. Many people in the sport started looking at other people. I myself was thinking, well, who's the heir apparent? Right? Fury's talking about retirement. I get the feeling Usyk only wants to fight legends. Right? Fury, Wilder. I don't get the feeling Usyk's interested in fighting other people. So guys like me started to say, well, let's take a look. at Filip Hrgović. Right? Let's take a look at some of these other fighters. Understand, folks, they're already in the building. Tony Yoka is going to emerge sooner or later. Right? He wanted to fight Hrgović, but he had a fight commitment. So then Zhang Jili stepped in. Understand, folks, it's survival of the fittest. This is Darwinism. Zhang Jili isn't interested in standing in line. Right? You understand that if Tyson Fury called up a few guys at heavyweight, many of them would have responded by saying, hey, player, just let me pack. You know, I will be in the UK for the fight announcement. Just allow me to kiss my wife, explain to the kids, Daddy's going to be gone for a few days. Right? Understand. There are a lot of fighters who want the title. You have guys fighting in eliminators, right? Deontay Wilder technically is fighting in an eliminator against Robert Helenius. Then, of course, the way that sanctioning body, I believe it's the WBC, has set it up, he's then going to fight Andy Ruiz. Or I should say the winner of Wilder Helenius is then going to fight Andy Ruiz. You have guys positioning themselves for shots at the title. The Hrgović-Jili fight was an elimination fight. So now you have Tyson Fury giving Joshua one more chance. Right? Understand, with Joshua, there's a lot of smoke there. Right? I know many of you disagree with me, and that's cool. This is not a dictatorship. Let's all disagree. But I personally have a problem hearing that Joshua couldn't reach a deal with Fury before. Joshua couldn't reach a deal with Deontay Wilder. Right? I'm like, you've got to be kidding. You're Anthony Joshua. Wilder has a share of the belt. Don't you tell your people, hey, make the fight work, especially when you're going to make tens of millions of dollars or pounds as it is. So now Joshua's older. He seems to be wiser. The phone rang. Apparently it's Tyson Fury's people. They say 60-40 according to reports. Joshua's response was, thank you very much. Right? They were saying, hey, the fight has to happen this year. According to reports, Joshua responded, I'll be ready in December. That's how it's done. Let's be clear. That's how it's done. So they'll work out the details, right? Location and whatever else, right? Judges, whatever, right? They'll work out the details. Let me applaud Joshua right here. Right? This is a big fight for him. He can, as much as a guy coming off 2 losses can, deliver on the promise. The promise was that he was going to be the face of British boxing. That he was going to be the next great British heavyweight champion. Right? Understand too, let's be clear here. The world has a lot of countries. If you're talking about the heavyweight division in 2022, the conversation has to start in the United Kingdom. I concede. An argument can be made that the best heavyweight in the world is from the Ukraine, right? That'll have to be sorted out in the ring, right? Eventually, Fury is going to have to face Usyk in the ring if we're going to get an answer to that question, if Fury survives Joshua. Right? But just to understand, the UK right now is flooded with heavyweights. There are guys getting lost in the mix. Hughie Fury is one of the best heavyweights on the planet. We don't even talk about him. Right? The UK is such a hotbed right now that former heavyweight champions from other countries, Joseph Parker, are traveling to the UK to train for fights. They're in the UK between fights. Well, understand what Joshua's facing. There are people in the UK who are saying things like, man, if Dillian Whyte gets a second shot at Joshua, he might deliver in that fight. They're saying, wow, I'm not sure, quite frankly, if Joe Joyce isn't ready for Joshua. You got some people thinking, wow, how many rounds did it take Daniel Dubois to win his portion of the heavyweight title? Right? Why can't he do that against Joshua? Doesn't he move around the ring a little bit better than Anthony Joshua? And of course, you have people like me who flatly say that Joshua stands little chance in the ring against Tyson Fury. Let's talk about that fight. Right? Let me just be blunt here. Right? Let me also, before I do, let me just point out that the UK is so loaded that I believe the conversation soon is going to have Lawrence Okoye's name in there at heavyweight. Right? Understand, Okoye has a great jab and he has size. To beat Okoye, you're going to have to move around the ring. We're coming out of a big clunky heavyweight era. Right? Joshua is just learning how to move around the ring, folks. So a guy like Okoye, who is going to punish you if you stay in the pocket against him, could move up to heavyweight and could cause problems. Let me name another guy. And this guy to me still, as of right now, has given Usyk the toughest fight of his career. And that's Maris Briedis. Right? Briedis just lost his cruiserweight title. Folks, he broke Jay Opetaya's jaw on both sides. Let's say the winner in that fight was the guy having surgery after the fight. Maris Briedis has already beaten Manuel Charr at heavyweight. Maris Briedis knows how to move. Maris Briedis is a born puncher. So we'll call it a crowded heavyweight division right now. That could be even more crowded if guys outside of the heavyweight division decided to join the party. Joshua got a call from the Lineal and has accepted the challenge. Now, there is a wild card in all this. I'll just be blunt. I'm a big fan of Robert Garcia. Now, the question with Garcia is, how acclimated is he to the heavyweight division? Right? The other question, and it's a major question, is simply the amount of time that Garcia has had. And Garcia trains other fighters. Right? Understand, Garcia has quite the stable. How much time has Garcia had to work with Anthony Joshua? You saw some of the Garcia tweaks to Joshua's game in the second Usyk fight. Right? Suddenly, Anthony Joshua was bending his knees. Suddenly, Anthony Joshua was committed to going to the body. Right? But you also saw some things that were a little unusual. Right? Joshua doesn't step on the gas for several rounds, in part because he's fighting a maestro, a guy who's moving around the ring. Right? It's hard to implement the new game plan when the guy won't stand still. When you have to try to catch up to the guy, and of course you're getting hit with punches while you're trying to show your new stuff. Right? You get the feeling that Garcia is going to have Joshua fighting low. Right? Understand, Fury's taller than Joshua. You get the feeling that Garcia is going to try to have Joshua moving his head, bending his knees, coming in low, and doing so a little bit earlier than he did in the Usyk rematch. Now let's point out the problems, and I believe the problem is really a life problem, a self-perception problem. The kind of style I'm talking about is a Mike Tyson style. Tyson, like Joshua, was a blessed puncher. Tyson, like Joshua, hit hard with both hands. Right? Tyson came along at a time where a lot of heavyweights were taller than him. Right? Larry Holmes, Bone Crusher Smith, Tony Tubbs. Right? These guys were all taller than Mike Tyson. Tyson was the shorter guy. So Tyson, who was cat quick, knew how to bend his knees, knew how to get low, and knew how to slip inside. Once inside, Tyson would hit your body with major hooks. He had a great uppercut. Look at Tyson against Frank Bruno, another guy from his era who was taller. Right? Tyson had a great uppercut. Tyson would chop you down. Understand, too, that Tyson was a fast starter. Let's remember the Marvis Frazier fight. Let's remember the Trevor Burbeck fight, how Tyson gets the title. Right? There are Tyson fights that went a few rounds. Bone Crusher Smith probably hugged Tyson more than he hugged his wife. Right? But understand, if you were going to go rounds with Mike Tyson, you had to be ready to do some hugging. Right? Now, here's the problem. Right? Tyson always understood, because he was the smaller man, that he had to bend and get inside. His mindset was the smaller man's mindset. I've got to maneuver my way inside. I've got to get inside of the other man's reach. Anthony Joshua has always, well, we'll say almost always, been the bigger man in his fights. Anthony Joshua moves like a bigger man. You get the feeling that if Mike Tyson had a Robert Garcia in his corner and Garcia said, hey man, look, I need for you to bend your knees. I need for you to go to the body. I need for you to be on your front foot. Tyson would say, yeah, that sounds good to me. Right? Then you would see that game plan, what, 15 seconds into the fight? How long would it take Tyson to get inside on an Alexander Usyk, or at least to try to get inside on an Alexander Usyk and to throw some big punches and to try to get Usyk over by the ropes? How long does that take? Folks, I would say inside of 90 seconds. Now, if Robert Garcia gives Anthony Joshua the same instructions, what do you get? Well, we know what we've gotten. That's the second Usyk fight. Also, look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's a guy moving at the head because you're fighting a Tyson Fury. Right? Fury won the title on his back foot. That was against Vladimir Klitschko. Right? The problem I have here for the Joshua side is that Klitschko, to me, of all the fighters in history, is the one who Joshua, at least under his former trainer, has modeled himself off of. Right? Great left hook, great straight right hand, patience, doesn't come out and try to impose himself on you. Right? Isn't Sonny Liston, isn't Mike Tyson. I believe it's the Tyson skill set that you need to beat Tyson Fury, who ironically is named after Mike Tyson. I believe Usyk has an excellent shot at beating Tyson Fury, because I believe Usyk would be able to follow Fury to avoid his jab. Understand, Usyk's a southpaw. I believe Usyk would be able to avoid Fury's jab. I believe Fury would have to fight right-handed, because I think Fury's left-handed skills aren't good enough to deal with an elite lefty who emphasizes mobility. And of course, Look at Usyk's upper body. Like Mike Tyson, Usyk moves his head. Usyk's almost constant motion. Right? Usyk's in there. Usyk's moving his head. Usyk's moving around. Usyk has foot speed. You can see a scenario where Tyson Fury tries to use his length advantage to keep Fury at the end of a jab. That worked in the second fight against Deontay Wilder. That wouldn't work against an Usyk. Right? Fury wouldn't be able to stick his hand out like he did against Wilder, not even jab, and just use the hand to establish length between the two of them. To know how far away he is. Use the hand as a rangefinder. He wouldn't be able to do that because you and I know Usyk would quickly pivot, would move away from the hand. Suddenly, Usyk would be under the hand. Or Usyk would force Tyson Fury to move. Right? Like Tyson, Usyk has a lifetime of quick, twitchy movements. Moving his head, right? Moving his head. Quick punches. Anthony Joshua doesn't. He has a trainer who will tell him how it's done. Will show him how it's done. Right? Joshua will, of course, listen intently. In a few months' time, right? Because Garcia just became his trainer this year. In less than a year, can Garcia turn Joshua into the kind of fighter who can aggressively be on his front foot in a way that Vladimir Klitschko wasn't for most of that fight, right? Klitschko comes alive in the 12th round against Fury. But understand, Garcia has to convince Joshua to be more aggressive than Vladimir Klitschko. To lean forward like Mike Tyson. To go low like Mike Tyson. To be aggressive against Tyson Fury. Now, to the people watching this video from the UK, you know your fighter. Is that Anthony Joshua? Can you turn Joshua into the kind of guy who goes hunting and is willing to be the smaller man, the more agile man, the aggressive guy, looking for the taller man's body to land body shots? Is that Anthony Joshua? Right, understand too, I've mentioned George Foreman in the past. I don't believe anybody in George Foreman's life had to tell George Foreman to be aggressive. Right? Foreman was the big man, and keep in mind, Foreman wasn't blessed with quick foot speed. But Foreman was the kind of big man who'd go looking for Tyson Fury. You know that. You know, early in that fight, Foreman would make a deal. He would say, okay, you know what? This guy's jab, I'm willing to take it. If it gets me closer to him, so I can try to trade with him. You know, Foreman's plan wouldn't be to duke it out with Tyson Fury in the middle of the ring. You know, Foreman's plan would be to get Tyson Fury over by the ropes. You want to see a fight where a guy decided to be front foot heavy who normally wasn't. Look at the Lennox Lewis Andrew Galata fight. Now, Joshua has been with us for some time. To the people in the UK, is he the kind of guy who's going to come in, whether he's low or tall, like Foreman was, who's going to come in like Lewis was, who's going to come in and actually try to cut off the ring on a superior boxer with height. Because let me say this. If Joshua doesn't get low and try to get inside like Tyson, like Joe Frazier, and if he's not going to, let's say, stay high, throw big shots and try to get inside and dole out punishment, like George Foreman or like Lewis against Galata, if he allows a boxing match to break out for the third fight in a row, Joshua is going to get methodically dissected by a superior boxer in Tyson Fury. Right? This is for Fury, the opposite of fighting Usyk. Right? I believe if Fury fights Usyk, he's going to be slower than Usyk. Right? I believe he's faster than Joshua. He's going to be slower than Usyk. He won't be able to fight against Usyk on his back foot. Rather, he's going to have to get deep in the pocket on Usyk and try to bully Usyk. But against Anthony Joshua, I believe Tyson Fury can live on his back foot. I believe Tyson Fury can fight the same fight that he fought against Vladimir Klitschko. Unless Usyk's new corner can convince Usyk to operate out of character. And the problem with doing so, as I've said on earlier videos, is I can say to you, hey, you can't drive 55 like you always do. You need to drive 70 here. But I'm just telling you, after the first 5 or 6 miles, people revert to who they are. I believe Joshua is a cautious giant. I believe Joshua is a guy who needs to feel safe to start opening up the tank. Right, Joshua, I've watched some Joshua fights where the other guy's being aggressive out the gate, the Povetkin fight. Right, and Joshua will kind of wait, figure out the lay of the land before opening up. The Dillian Whyte fight's interesting because I thought Dillian Whyte came out and is more aggressive than Joshua in the first round. Right? Then Joshua, and this is a guy Joshua fought in the amateurs. Joshua knew Dillian Whyte. Then Joshua started to feel safe, started to get the tempo of the fight. Then Joshua was hyper aggressive. That's one of Joshua's best aggressive performances. Right? Starts cuffing around Dillian Whyte with both hands. But you didn't see that early. Now the problem is Joshua is in the part of the heavyweight division where he's fighting great boxers. Against an Usyk, you can't give away the first 3 or 4 rounds. You just can't do it. Because Usyk's too good a boxer. Also, just like you're learning Usyk, trying to feel safe, Usyk's learning you. Right? Usyk has a reserve. So, 9th round, Usyk gets stunned. Crowd's into it. Right? The crowd was so starved. The crowd's cheering that 9th round. You thought, oh man, this might be where Joshua takes over. Usyk goes to his corner. Usyk comes out for the 10th round. He's ready. He has the adjustments ready. He can implement the adjustments the very next round. If you're fighting Tyson Fury, you can't allow the beginning of the fight to get away from you. So that first Fury-Wilder fight, Fury comes out and is outboxing Wilder. Wilder's behind in the fight when Wilder gets the first knockdown. Right? Understand, Vladimir Klitschko, and I'm talking about the biggest fights of Fury's career. Vladimir Klitschko's fighting Fury. By the middle of that fight, you understood Fury was well ahead on the scorecards. Right? Understand. Anthony Joshua, after losing 2 fights in a row, needs to come out like Mike Tyson did against Marvis Frazier. Right? Needs to come out and needs to swing public opinion. Needs to give people the impression that, hey, I know I hit harder than Tyson Fury. He is going to be in imminent danger. You let a boxing match break out, and the judges are going to start to fall in a pattern. Right? The fight's going to then start to come down to, can Joshua land a big punch? Right? You certainly can't wait until the 9th round against Tyson Fury to start to assert yourself. So this is an interesting fight. If a boxing match breaks out, it's going to be lopsided. You're going to see one of the best boxers to lace up gloves. And that's really what we have here, folks. You have one of the best boxers in heavyweight history to ever lace up gloves. ×2. Right? Fury, Usyk. Folks, you're not going to outbox them. That second fight is an illusion. The second Joshua-Usyk fight, that's an illusion. Right? You and I know that the scorecard shouldn't have been that close. I'm supposed to believe that going into the 10th round, Anthony Joshua was winning that fight? How's that possible? When Joshua started that fight tentatively. Understand, you have 2 of the best boxers in heavyweight history with shares of the heavyweight title. If you're going to beat them, you're going to have to bully them, not box them. Can Anthony Joshua, in his second fight with Robert Garcia, bully Tyson Fury? Right? Is he that kind of fighter? You and I know the type of bully type fighter. Sonny Liston, George Foreman, right? Nigel Benn, not so much Conor Benn, but Daddy, Nigel Benn. Right? You know the guy who believes in his punching power, who doesn't even think that he has to really be a master at the sport. He's fighting, not boxing, and he still thinks he can beat you. Right? You know the gambler in the ring who says, hey, this guy doesn't hit as hard as I do. Let's trade. I'll taste your power if you have to taste mine. You know that fighter. Right, folks? Is that Anthony Joshua? Admittedly, one of the most blessed punchers in the heavyweight division. Can Joshua get aggressive with Tyson Fury? Can Joshua force Tyson Fury to fight? I believe the answer is no. But I'm willing to hear from the crowd here. Tell us why in the comment section of this video. Anthony Joshua can change things up and be aggressive against Tyson Fury, who has even more length than Usyk. Be aggressive against Tyson Fury in a way that he was not aggressive against Alexander Usyk. Let me also point out too, right? Let's revisit Mike Tyson, right? You have to identify the Tysons here. Let's revisit Mike Tyson against Buster Douglas, right? Okay, Mike Tyson did knock down Buster. All right, I understand some people believe that it was a long count. Okay, great. Can we agree that Tyson is at the end of a jab for a lot of that fight? Can we agree that when Tyson slips the jab, Buster Douglas had an uppercut ready? that there was a layered game to Buster Douglas. That getting inside against a skilled boxer, and Buster Douglas was a skilled boxer, getting inside on a slick boxer is harder than simply slipping the guy's jab. You slip the guy's jab, the guy might have that uppercut ready. The guy might want you to slip the jab. The jab might be illusory. Right? We just saw a fight. Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz. I've seen Ortiz with a very stiff jab. In this fight, Ortiz had kind of like a makeshift jab. You notice, though, when Andy got by the jab, Luis Ortiz had that left hand ready, didn't he? Landed some heavy left hands on Andy Ruiz. You started wondering, wow, was that jab there to be slipped? This is a sport of strategy. Folks, Tyson Fury is a strategy major type. He's also ambidextrous. Let me point out, too, if Joshua gets tentative, what's to prevent Fury from going southpaw against a tentative righty, knowing that that righty just lost back-to-back fights against the southpaw? Anyway, that's how I see it. I think Fury wins the fight. I think Fury is dodging Usyk, right? I hope the press reminds Fury, hey, why aren't you fighting the guy who won Joshua's last fight? Why are you fighting Joshua? Right? I hope the press roughs up the champ a little bit, right? This is not a fan club site. While I respect and admire Tyson Fury, when Tyson Fury dodges a guy, we need to call him out on it. Right? What is it about Usyk that has you fighting somebody Usyk just beat? Right? Let's call him out on it. But I do feel that Joshua doesn't have the temperament to quickly become Mike Tyson. Right? He's not going to take the chances Mike Tyson took. Right, folks? Mike Tyson stalked a guy with a great jab, one of the best I've ever seen, Larry Holmes. Mike Tyson's on his front foot against Larry Holmes. Right? You get the feeling that if Tyson Fury starts showing Joshua his jab, Joshua's going to be tentative. Joshua's going to wait. Joshua's going to be patient. Joshua's going to find himself down 3 or 4 rounds against the guy who has the belt, right? You know, the champ gets the benefit of the doubt, right? If it's a close round, a lot of scorers are going to say, this opponent didn't do enough to take the title. If I'm here asking myself, after 2 minutes and 58 seconds, wow, who won this round? A lot of people are going to say, well, I know that this challenger, just the fact that I'm asking the question, this challenger hasn't done enough to take the champ's title. Right? Is Joshua the kind of guy who can come take a guy's title on his front foot aggressively, getting inside, landing body shots early? I have my doubts. Let me hear your take in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.